Hi, this is Larry Jordan. This is an excerpt of a recent webinar entitled Rigging Widgets and Wonders in Motion 5. There's a lot of interesting controls that we can create in a Motion project that we can send over to Final Cut, because effects in Final Cut are really Motion projects, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's webinar. By the way, all our online video tutorials and webinars and many of our Final Cut 10 training are now available via subscription. This is a great way to access all of our online training. For one low monthly price, you get streaming access anytime, anywhere via the internet. You can learn more at larryjordan.biz/subscriptions. This session picks up where our Intro to Motion 5 webinar left off. I want to show you how to publish settings from Motion into Final Cut Pro 10, explain widgets and rigging, show how to use rigging and widgets in Motion 5 to create adjustable effects for Final Cut Pro 10, and show you how to keyframe parameters to animate effects within Final Cut. All generators, titles, transitions, and effects in Final Cut Pro 10 are various forms of Motion projects. Widgets and rigging allow you to create customized Motion projects, move them to Final Cut Pro 10, and provide controls that allow you to adjust the effect in Final Cut 10 without having to return the effect to Motion to make changes. These tools allow us to use Motion to create visual effects, but not audio effects. And that's because Motion provides containers for video that can be shared between Motion and Final Cut, but it doesn't provide containers for audio. The definition of publish means to send the controls for a specific parameter from Motion to Final Cut Pro 10. This sends the entire contents of the control. A widget, on the other hand, has three different states. There's a checkbox, a pop-up menu, or a slider, to which parameters and custom settings can be attached. A widget can control a single parameter or multiple parameters, and I'll show this in detail over today's session. A snapshot is a set of parameter values that are applied to each state of a widget. A widget is the control. The snapshot is the settings that go into the control. Multiple snapshots can be applied to the same widget. And a rig is a container for widgets. A widget is a single checkbox, pop-up menu, or slider, which has settings determined by snapshots, and all the widgets together are collected inside a rig. So let's start with a demo and show you what publishing is. I'm going to create a generator. In this case, it'll be a solid color circle. Then I'll publish the color control and show you how this works inside Final Cut. Then we'll send this back to Motion and make changes. We'll add another control. We'll publish the scale control. So let me show you how this works. This is the template browser for Motion. And we have 5 choices. We can create a vanilla flavor Motion project, or a Final Cut effect, a Final Cut generator, a Final Cut transition, or Final Cut title. So let's create a new project. Let's just double click on Final Cut generator, and it opens up a new Motion project. Because I created a generator, it gives me an open and empty project. So let's create something really simple. We're going to create a green circle. So we'll go down to the shape control, hold the mouse button down, and I'm going to select the circle shape. And I'm going to select our circle command and start to drag. If I hold the Option key down, it drags from the center. And if I hold Shift key down, it constrains the circle so it's a perfect circle. And we'll create something about that size. Go to our arrow tool here and drag it down so it fits inside the frame, and use the guides to align it so it's perfectly centered. I've now created a green circle. If I take this green circle and I go up to File and I say Save As, because I haven't given it a name, I'll say Save As. What am I going to call it? I'm going to call it a green circle. And I'm going to store it in a category called Webinars, which is a category that I created. And a theme allows me to create a subcategory within the category. But in my particular case, I don't need that level of organization, so I'll just store it in the Webinar category. Publish means it's going to make this generator available to Final Cut Pro 10, and click Publish. Now let's start Final Cut. And we'll open the generator window. And there's our webinars. There's the green circle. I'll just drag it on here, edit it to the end of the timeline, and ta-da! I have created an effect inside Motion that now shows up inside Final Cut. And it shows up inside the generator browser. This is really cool. Except, if I go to the inspector and I highlight the clip, notice the generator tab is lit. I can't change the color. I can't change the size. It's just sort of sitting there. So what we got to do is we got to go back to Motion. The easiest way to adjust that is to control-click on the effect inside the browser or right mouse click and say Open in Motion. This then opens that Motion template back up inside Motion. And now I want to publish, which means to share. I'm going to publish the color control back over to Final Cut. To do that, select the circle, go to the inspector, go to the Shape tab, and notice it says Fill Color. As I click on this, I can now change the color of the fill to any color that I want. Okay, now here's the cool part. If you look really, really closely, way over on the right is this downward pointing triangle. When you click it, it opens up a flyout menu, and notice this choice right here called Publish. Publish means to send that entire control, the fill color control, over to Final Cut. Publish. And because I changed the file, we'll save it. File, save. That updates the saved version. Go back to Final Cut, Command Tab. Now, changing the motion setting does not affect the clip that's in the timeline. That's locked. Anything that I change won't affect that clip. It only affects what's inside the browser. So I'll delete the clip in the timeline, grab the browser, drag it down, select the clip, and look at that. There's the fill color that we published. In fact, this is really neat. If you click on the square, it opens up the traditional color picker. If, on the other hand, you click on the downward pointing arrow, it opens up the motion color picker. Depending upon where you click, you're going to get one of two color pickers, the traditional or the new. And yet they work in tandem with each other. Make a change in one, the change occurs in the other. So we've seen that I've been able to publish the color setting. This sends the entire control over to Final Cut. Well, let's do this one more time. Right mouse click, Open in Motion. Let's publish one more setting. Select the circle, go to the inspector, go to Properties, and we're going to publish Scale. Remember, Scale allows us to change the size of the circle. Okay, so we click this downward pointing triangle, say Publish, save the file, File, Save, switch to Final Cut. Again, it does not update the clip that's in the timeline, so we're going to delete that. Drag in the new browser clip, which is updated, select it, and look at that. Not only do I have the fill color, but I've also brought in the scale command. Publishing allows me to send controls from Motion into Final Cut so that inside Final Cut I can adjust the effect. Now, the cool thing about publishing is that it sends the entire control. The bad thing about publishing is what happens if I don't want editors to have access to every possible color? What happens if I just want them to have access to a single color or a range of colors? Or I only want them to have access to a few effects, not the entire range of the effect? Well, when I'm publishing, I don't have that opportunity. For that, we have to use widgets and rigging. And that's what I want to talk about next. For the complete version of this online training, please visit my store at larryjordan.biz/store.